Thank you for joining us here on SCW, the wrestling channel. You may be watching us on YouTube. You may be listening on great podcast platforms. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Steve. I'm joined in the hot seat by George Jones, and it is This Week in Wrestling, episode 4, and what a week it's been. Honestly, we've got so much to cover. We've got SummerSlam updates. We've got potential interest of AEW, of maybe a potential signing, their first releases, and we're going to be covering the shows as well this week from AEW, NXT, Raw, and we may just touch on SmackDown as well, and maybe just a small bit of Impact, because I've got an Impact comment for later in the video as well. So lots to get through, so we're going to go straight into it, George. But first off, I need to check how you're doing.
Very well, mate. It's Friday, at the end of another week. I just want to give a special shout out in memory of Kamala. Obviously, it was a sad loss this week where we lost him. Another legend of wrestling gone, unfortunately, but I dedicate this show to him, certainly. Absolutely,
indeed. Yeah, some great memories of watching him, particularly his rivalry in '92 with The Undertaker. Was in my first year of viewing wrestling, and I will always remember the casket match between the two. It was certainly a big event, and also they also had an encounter at SummerSlam as well in the famous Wembley Stadium as well. So a lot of memories there, and like you say, it's a great shout there, and of course, rest in peace, Kamala. But we're going to kick things off with SummerSlam. There's lots of updates that, in fact, from after Raw this week, we hopefully from SmackDown onwards, we'll have a big change of how we view WWE. We could be moving to it looks like we are going to be moving to the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida. So a much bigger place to do the recordings. We're going to have a bigger production team, it looks, and it seems that morale looks to be a lot happier amongst the roster going forward. That we're going to be in perhaps a bigger environment than what we were before. Of course, for SummerSlam, perhaps it's a bit disappointing we haven't got maybe like a bash at the beach kind of feel, maybe an outdoor kind of fun venue. But to see that we're going to get these events at a bigger, larger scale certainly seems a bit more exciting for the talent, and hopefully that will translate to the viewer at home. I'm certainly excited to see it outside of the Performance Center, but George, I'd like to get your take on it.
Yeah, it's a positive. At least we're not going to be in the Performance Center anymore. I think it's great that the avenue is going to be there for them to run shows with fans down the line with an attendance at least. I think it's great. I think the only worry I slightly have with this is that Raw, SmackDown, everything's going to be coming from this venue. It's going to be very much deja vu every week, but I'm sure with the fact that they can bring in stuff as virtual fans and stuff like that, it'll make it different. But it's definitely exciting. It's great to see WWE back in almost an arena instead of the Performance Center.
Well, you mentioned there, yeah, great points there. And you mentioned the virtual fans there straight away. Of course, that's another thing that's coming because, of course, we can't have fans at this stage. But certainly it's something that's been potentially speculated that could come in. Now, I'm sure for a lot of people, this is kind of seeming as a bit alien, but it has been involved and tested with the English Premier League of having, some screens at least with some fans and kind of like a Zoom kind of vibe. Do you think WWE might go down that route to try and bring some sort of noise and fans in for attendance? Or do you reckon there could be different ways they could look into this?
I think it'd be good if they did a mixture. Obviously, they've got the standing fans at the moment, the performers. I think if they do that with virtual fans, it could work. It's just good to see them do something. But the sooner we can get fans back every week to the product, I think it will just further enhance sort of the current direction they're going in, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing is, fans get invested, fans get excited. And of course, if you're looking for that reaction, of course, it does seem sometimes a bit lackluster at home when, you see a big angle happening in WWE and there's no reaction from anyone there apart from the PC guys who are, arguably they're planted to say what way they're meant to go, whether it's meant to cheer or meant to boo. We're not necessarily reflecting what they are reflecting, apart from maybe 1-2 sarcastic comments, which we do kind of like when they do come flying out. But you said also there a minute ago about the idea of shows being samey. I feel it's kind of got that way with the Performance Center, especially with NXT shows as well. I'm kind of just excited for a change in general. Do you think it's just really good just to be away from the PC? How have you felt watching shows recently in the Performance Center?
I think it's very much the same. The problem you have is if you're not going to have elaborate sets or anything different, what they've done quite well about the Performance Center shows is they have had this stuff outside the arena, like the vignettes and sort of matches outside the arena, which kind of make it a bit different. But I get it. I think from what I've heard, the rumor I heard today was that apparently they're going to be at this new arena probably for the rest of the year, which it's a big sort of undertaking from WWE, considering they may not be getting revenue from ticket sales.
Absolutely, of course. I mean, because before they were probably making a lot of money by just having it at the Performance Center, they own the building. Now they're actually going to rent somewhere, but it gives them a lot more space to work with, particularly backstage and, throughout the arena. So hopefully we can break the shows up a little bit better, because that's probably the one sad thing with the Performance Center is I feel a lot of the shows feel quite trapped. It's such a small little area. And when you compare it to AEW and watching their shows at Daily's Place, I feel that obviously AEW's production always looks a lot better because it's a lot more spaced out. And I just kind of feel that they have more room to work with. And, you just have that breakaway in the shows, and the shows seem to float a lot quicker as a result, minus talking about the booking, of course. But what do you feel that same vibe when you watch AEW with their kind of their viewing of the product, if you want, sort of like how you envision the show with Daily's Place?
Yeah, I think Daily's Place is a great sort of setting for a show. It definitely does feel a bit more fresh and a bit more alive every single week on AEW. But let's see what this goes. I think it'll be a great way to see them sort of go back. More importantly, they're going to be going back to real life sort of live shows instead of taping shows. So hopefully there'll be less chance of spoilers coming out and stuff that's impactful will be shocked when it happens, basically.
Absolutely, because nothing I hate more than a spoiler. Unfortunately, a few of the AEW spoilers seem to have come out today for next week's show, which of course we'll let you find on the dirt sheets. We're not going to reveal too much, and of course the spoilers may be right, they may not be right. It's actually conflicting reports coming out, but of course AEW actually had some fans at their show this week, which was kind of interesting. But it looked like that they were kind of spaced out, judging by Twitter. A couple of people had posted some photos, and people were all wearing masks, and people were suggesting that it was all kind of above board, but it wasn't kind of maybe fans that were random. There were more people invited to attend. So I guess there is a chance that we're starting to go in that direction of fans. But of fans in general, George, I mean, this is not going on one company, this is going on all. Do you feel it's kind of too soon for people to be coming back at this stage? Or do you feel that you're happy to see a few people come back in at this moment in time?
I think if the fans sign a waiver, I think it's entirely down to them, really. As long as it's safe and there's the right conditions and stuff, everything's going on. The problem is without these fans, I think it's very hard for the wrestlers to get over. We've got no real idea when you look at the wrestlers. Like, we haven't seen Drew McIntyre in front of a crowd yet. It would have been great to see him with a belt in front of a crowd. I think the problem is a lot of these promos, a lot of these comedic type characters in WWE and AEW, such as Orange Cassidy and stuff like that, without the fans, they're really struggling, I think, to sort of connect, really.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That certainly, I mean, when you look at Otis, is a very prime example. I mean, he was kind of really on a hot streak leading into WrestleMania. Had such a big storyline, and it seems like he's fallen off the radar since he's won that Money in the Bank. He feels almost lost to a degree. But I think I agree with you. Certain superstars are just losing a bit of their buzz. If you look at it from a casual standpoint, sitting from home. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as we build towards that going forward further. But I feel that this is exciting news, and I look at it and think for WWE, yes, I would have liked to have seen SummerSlam on a beach and that, but I feel to have it just in this, it's kind of going to feel very fresh anyway to be in this arena. I think it'll be something like, if I'm not mistaken, like the second show that they're going to be recording. So I'm kind of happy to see how this is going to play out.
Yeah, me too. I think it would be good to do something different. And I think the fact that we may have a potential for some sort of backdrop or some sort of setting that might make it stand out more than just a Raw or SmackDown.
Absolutely, indeed, and that's something we'd really like to see. And maybe they might even do something for the Raw and SmackDown sets again. They might get the individual touch each and every show. That would be quite good to see as well. But still, probably a bit too much for me to ask for the SmackDown fist. Anyway, we shall move on topics anyway, and we'll just go on a little bit of the news very quickly, because AEW's got a bit of news that have come out today. It looks like, and it's been confirmed, it seems, by the talents themselves, it seems, on Twitter, hopefully, certainly by one or two of them. But it looks like we've got their first releases anyway, with Jimmy Havoc, that seems to be the most notable big name really of this lineup. We've got Bea Priestley and we've got Sadie Gibbs, all seem to be released from the company. Sadie Gibbs has put out a tweet saying that she was thankful for the opportunity to be working with Tony Khan and AEW. I mean, of course, we have no real reasoning with it, and it hasn't been announced by AEW themselves. The first notice that came of this was talents were taken off of their roster page on their website. I think, judging by the names, I wouldn't say that some of them are going to be such a big miss. I mean, if you look at Bea Priestley and Sadie Gibbs, they've been working overseas, and we haven't seen those talents that have been coming from partnerships, I believe, with like Stardom, for example. Even Riho hasn't been showing up since the pandemic started. It's probably not such a big loss when you look at that. Jimmy Havoc, of course, was definitely highly mentioned on the Speaking Out movement. I believe that they were going to reevaluate the situation after they'd gotten to see some people about it. But it looks like that he won't be returning to the company. So, I mean, it's certainly something that has not surprised me that eventually they would need to release some talents. Of course, this is a pandemic we're going through. Do you think it's a shame that AEW have had to release the talents?
Yeah, it's a shame people lose their jobs. I think the fact that this is the biggest crime in the COVID whole situation, people are losing their jobs. As I said, the British talent wasn't really kind of used, if that makes sense. So I kind of get it. Obviously, Jimmy Havoc was with Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford. They had that setup going on, and that was going sort of quite far. I think a lot of this, though, a lot of the media focus has been this all speaking out movement, as you said. So I don't think they could risk having him back. Obviously, we don't know the ins and outs of the story. We don't know what's true and what's not. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see sort of if anybody else gets released, unfortunately.
Yeah, let's hope not. But there has been a rumour as well that it could be interested in a potential signing. Now, this would certainly not be happening in the very near future. But Ethan Page of Impact Wrestling, his contract apparently is due to expire on New Year's Eve later this year. And there has been talk that perhaps there could be interest from AEW, but there has also been talk from Ethan Page that he might re-sign with Impact. I'm not surprised that AEW would have interest there, particularly his tag team Ethan Page with Josh Alexander, the North. For me, arguably one of the best tag teams in wrestling right now. There's been a lot of talk on social media of Ethan Page wanting to have a tag team match with the North versus FTR. I certainly think that would be a humdinger if they were to do that. Are you surprised that AEW would have interest in such a talented individual like Ethan Page?
Yeah, no, not really surprised at all. I think that if they could get both of them together, that'd be a great addition to the AEW tag team division, which I think by far at the moment is probably the best tag team division in wrestling.
I would agree with that entirely. I mean, almost to the point that you look at it and say that where would they fit in? But I mean, of course, these guys together are absolutely incredible duo. I believe Josh Alexander joined around April, like not long after Ethan Page joined the company. So I think he's a few months afterwards. But normally, I mean, I'm going to say normally because I don't know for sure, a lot of Impact talents seem to sign probably 2-year deals at the most. So you would feel that maybe Josh Alexander maybe a few months behind before he could join in. But could you see Ethan Page as a single star?
I think he's got the talent. I think he's got the charisma. I think it could work. It'd be interesting to see how he goes as a singles wrestler if it happens. I think we're always used to seeing him as a tag team. What's your thoughts?
I mean, personally, I remember looking at an Impact Wrestling throwback. They kind of did a special Thanksgiving episode where they kind of did almost like an NWA kind of throwback. And Ethan Page was kind of built like the main event champion. He was almost built like The Rock when The Rock was sort of in '99, had those sunglasses, the shirt with all the buttons undone, walking to the ring, cocky and arrogant. And he kind of felt like he fit the role very well. Now, I know this was just, a one-off special and it didn't really mean anything, but you looked at that point and you thought he could kind of fit this role pretty well. And I do look at it as well. I mean, Ethan Page has got himself in incredible shape. He'll be the first one to show you on in Twitter at the moment and Instagram. He's posting a lot of stuff with how he's managed to trim himself down. He's certainly building up a good reputation as well amongst wrestling. He's done a lot of interviews recently with a lot of high-profile people. I think Ethan Page is definitely someone whose stock is rising. I'm actually surprised that WWE haven't shown interest either, because I think it's crying out, especially in NXT, for a tag team like the North.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing is just generally the tag team division in WWE at the moment is struggling, but there we go. It'd be a big loss for Impact Wrestling if they do lose him, but good luck to him if he does get the move.
If he does get the move, indeed. But I must admit, for my Impact followers out there, I am going to say that I am with you. I hope he stays put. But, of course, you wouldn't blame him if he was to go and have matches with the likes of FTR, the Lucha Brothers, the Young Bucks. There's so many great tag teams, as we said there, and a great established tag team division, which leads us nicely into AEW this week, who had their tag team appreciation night, which we saw FTR and the Young Bucks, of course, involved there in the ring with the Rock and Roll Express as well, with the Brainbusters of Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. This was kind of a bit of a love fest, and it kind of turned when Tully said, well, look, these young tag teams we've got, we kind of tell them how good they are, but none of them are champions. None of them have got gold. We saw Sean Spears come out, kind of got a bit of an altercation, and we saw that this was the moment FTR went full on heel, and we saw the spike pile driver on Ricky Morton from the Rock and Roll Express, which led to the Young Bucks coming back in, trying to sort of obviously, come to the aid of the Rock and Roll Express. We saw Omega and Hangman Page come out. Hangman even saying himself that, hey, what the hell, dude? We thought you were good guys. I thought that this was a tasteful way for FTR to kind of finally turn heel, and maybe we could build to that FTR Young Bucks match for a while. What do you reckon?
Definitely. I really liked this segment. I thought it was a great segment. I felt that there was some great moments. Tully Blanchard's promo was excellent. I felt that FTR really showed some character. I think if they are going to do a heel turn, I'd like to see that. But the Young Bucks FTR match, for me, that's going to be one of the matches of the year. So I'm really looking forward to when they do that.
Absolutely. I feel exactly the same. I feel that this was one of the strongest points of the show. I actually thought to myself that I love the idea of just tag team appreciation in general. And I think it was the right time. They've been teasing backwards and forwards of this, will they, won't they be a face or a heel? Are they going to be sided with the Elite or not for a number of weeks? And it's been a good question mark throughout the whole thing. I wonder if we're going to get the tag team match or if both teams will go for the tag team championships against Omega and Hangman at All Out. Would you like to see as a freeway, or do you want to see it start off with the Bucks and FTR first?
I think a freeway would be amazing. It'll be just like the old days of when you used to get Dudley Boys, Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian. It's got that level. It's got that magnitude. It's got it's money, isn't it? Really, let's be honest.
It is. It's something that I definitely want to see, and I think that it would be the perfect way as well to take the belts off of Omega and Page, because even if they were to perhaps lose the belt by not being pinned themselves, I think that would be interesting, and it could perhaps develop that potential partnership and potential future rivalry between the two as well. So that would be quite exciting to see. But we mentioned tag team appreciation, and of course AEW went through this throughout the entire show. I want to have just a little bit of fun with you quickly, George, if you don't mind. And they were going through their teams and saying who their favourite tag team was of all time. So I thought there could be a fun little twist for me and you to give our favourite tag teams of all time.
Yeah, no problem. You can go first.
Okay.
Who's your favourite tag team?
Well, I have to go with the Dudley Boys. I mean, you just mentioned them a brief moment ago then. I mean, they've done so many great tag team title reigns in so many different promotions. They're probably the only team as well to hold the ECW, WCW, and WWE and TNA tag team championships all in one. I know that they've had about, 20 odd championship reigns. They're working ECW's heels, where they used to get the entire building to just want to fight them and get them out of the buildings was incredible back in the day. They made the tables popular. Okay, maybe Public Enemy did it first, but I tell you what, they made it mainstream, the Dudley Boys. And we saw that all through the Attitude Era. You mentioned with the Hardys, Edge and Christian, the TLC matches as well. So many great moments with the Dudley Boys. And for me, I just loved the 3D finisher as well. It was almost like the cherry on top to what's been a great tandem. So for me, the Dudley Boys would be my answer. But George, what would be your team?
Mine's a bit nostalgic. I've got to go for the one and only Demolition. For me, when I was a kid growing up, my early investment of wrestling, didn't really get into it probably till about 1989, 1990, show my age now. What I liked about them, they just didn't take no sort of prisoners. They were just, they were so out there. They were so loud. Even the entrance music, you could just tell that they were terrifying, if that makes sense. And I think, I just think that they were really exciting. And what I liked about it is even when they started getting style, they still introduced like a new member, like Crush down the line was in it as well, which I think was quite clever. And I think the dream match for me was the Legion of Doom versus Demolition. I think we just don't have tag teams that are so magical to me these days almost.
No, I mean, to be fair, I mean, you look back then with what you say, they were Demolition. I mean, of course, they were almost the WWE's answer to what the Road Warriors or Legion of Doom were at the time. I think they only originally attempted with the Powers of Pain, but it didn't connect as well as Demolition did. And like you say, Demolition had one of the longest title reigns for such a long time until the New Day broke it in just the most recent couple of years. Demolition are going to be remembered as one of those all-time titans. But like you say, they stood out, didn't they, with their face paint. I will always remember their match at WrestleMania 6 when they won the belts against Haku and Andre the Giant. I always remember that being a special match. But like you say, great matches as well with the Hart Foundation, I believe, at SummerSlam 1990. Absolute classic as well.
Yeah, I just think they could tell you they weren't the best in ring, but they just had a presence really, and they could play babyface and heel so easily. I just think it was made it magical for me as a child. I think that's one of the things that got me into wrestling were these people that were larger than life, and they were. And the fact that I never forget the time when Mr. Fuji sort of turned on them and then joined the Powers of Pain. That still, for me, even now at my old age, resonates almost like it was yesterday. Yeah,
I mean, it was a special moment. Would I be right in saying it was at a Survivor Series?
Yeah, it was. It was like a massive match. I think there was like a 10 tag team match, like an elimination match. But yeah, it was just really, really good to kind of see it. Really, you look at it, sort of the way they're built up and stuff. Just the longevity, because these obviously were in WWF sort of from 1987 up to sort of probably around sort of 1990, 1991. But it's just how long they lasted, and even the stuff they did at sort of WrestleMania against Tenaru and Kiato, they were still relevant then, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, indeed. Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many great memories there with Demolition, like you say there, and certainly a great nostalgia, an excuse to get on the WWE Network, I think, after we finish this podcast and just relive a few of those moments. There were both of those great tag teams. But we're talking about stuff there that's certainly around 30 years ago. Someone else that's been in the business for around 33 odd years, I think, was Mike Chioda. Now, he made his debut this week for AEW, which I thought was a nice little touch there, and certainly added prestige to what was the TNT Championship match between Cody and Scorpio Sky. Cody was the victor, of course, of this match between the two. A decent match, but I could have seen it gone a little bit longer. But like we said, the big story here, there was two big talking points, and Mike Chioda was one of them. Was you happy to see him in AEW?
Yes, it's great following his sort of WWE release to finally see him sort of back in employment. He's one of the best referees of all time. He's up there with Earl Hebner for me. He's always a classic, and he's refereed such big matches. I remember at WrestleMania 2012, the 28th one, where he was the referee between Rock and Cena. I think it's just great, really, that he's able to do this in AEW. It does give AEW a bit of a lift as well. It's almost like the main events now feel a bit bigger.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, Audrey Edwards is a fantastic ref, and they do have some other good referees. But I agree with Chioda coming in. I just feel like it just adds a little bit something extra, and it really added to that TNT Championship match. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it was a great acquisition for AEW.
Absolutely, indeed. I would agree with you. We mentioned the TNT Championship. Of course, that's had a new design, or finalised design, should we say now. We finally got to see the unveiling of the official belt this week, with Cody coming to the ring with it. I thought that it certainly was an upgrade. I was very happy to see what they've done now with the finalised belt. Certainly an improvement of what we got with the unfinished belt. What were your thoughts?
It's colourful. I like it. I like the colour. I like the red. I think it's very similar to the WWE Undisputed title. I think it fits. But no, definitely it stands out, and I think it fits the whole thing that's going on with Cody as well, really well.
Absolutely, indeed. I believe there was a retro NWA television championship as well back in the old days, and I think that's something that they tried to look at the history and lineage of those classic championships, and I think he wanted to bring that to the TNT title, which I think is certainly a lovely touch indeed. We mentioned Mike Chioda there, and we'll just go a little bit further in it because he was featured more in the show. Of course, he was involved with the main event with Chris Jericho as well. In storyline terms, we don't know or in real terms, we don't know if Chioda's actually signed. He certainly appeared this week, but Chris Jericho more or less saying that he could get him a job if he did the right thing, helping him kind of beat Orange Cassidy in the main event of that show. Of course, that didn't kind of work out. Chioda was going to turn his back for Jericho when he had the baseball bat, but of course, Chioda went and grabbed the baseball bat in the end. He did the right thing, really. Orange Cassidy picking up the victory. I thought that it was a nice little tasteful way, but can you see, do you think Chioda will continue in his role going forward?
Yes, I can only see it, particularly the fact that there was this finish. I think it would make sense. Jericho's probably going to want revenge on Chioda. They could do that whole thing they used to do in WF in the old days, where sort of the babyface teams up with the referee and almost like a match against the heels. Really, I think that's a natural match for me next time. I think you'll probably get Cassidy and you'll probably get Chioda together versus Jericho and one of his stable, maybe.
You have to wait and see. It certainly could be interesting. I think definitely, like you say, there could be a telling off next week from Jericho, nonetheless. And I mean, of course, AEW did win the ratings again this week over NXT. And just for a little bit of comedy flavour, Jericho, I know you like to say you're the demo god, but come on, Chioda was in the main event with you. I don't think you can take all the credit this week. But looking through on the rest of the show as well, I must admit, I really loved MJF. I just, honestly, the guy is just gold and magic each and every week. I love the fact that his entrance this week when he comes to the ring was a very much of a take on when he was actually with Samoa Joe and his NXT ring entrance in 2015. Of course, first off, he had the gum put in his mouth. He had a new gum guy after he actually fired the one last week. He was, oh, this is really good. He wanted his assistant to smile more. And of course, now MJF was actually someone who was in the corridor with Samoa Joe on the way to one of his title defenses, who was pushed by Joe into the actual wall. He did the same thing to someone walking down to ringside, which I thought just a bit of comedic gold and absolutely loved it. He came into the ring and, of course, again, did his kind of political side of things, how he's going to win the championship, how he's leading in the polls, and how, Jon Moxley wasn't going to be there. But Jon Moxley, of course, was there. He sent everyone else to go and, kind of close Jon Moxley off. But of course, what he didn't realise that Jon Moxley wasn't going to come through the crowd this week. He simply came down the entranceway to literally making MJF just look like a complete fool. He fell victim to the paradigm shift. And he was laying in the ring, kind of holding onto his neck and feeling very, very sorry for himself. I thought this was a fantastic segment. I think it really built well for what we're leading to for this championship match at All Out. I think MJF looks like a star. He's got to be one of the best heels currently in wrestling. There's not a promo like him at the moment. And I feel that Jon Moxley is great in his face role as well here and coming out looking like a strong champion. What were your thoughts when you saw this play out for you on your television screen?
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was really well done. I love the way that Moxley comes out through the other entrance. I thought that was clever. MJF's acting at the end when he's screaming around in pain was comedy. And as you said, MJF, for me, is probably the best talker in the business at the moment. This guy can talk for England, and I think he's got great skills. I really hope that at the next pay-per-view he wins the belt. For me, he's the next AEW champion. He's got it all. He's got the ability. He's got a very good win-loss record. And I think he will carry that belt with great sort of intrigue. And I think the stuff they can do with him, particularly his promos and stuff, he's very inventive.
I agree with you. I think he's definitely that heel you love to hate, isn't he? And the fact that he's got such a great, record in AEW. Of course, wins and losses matter, and you can really see it does with MJF because he hasn't lost in a one-on-one match himself. His 2020 record is unbelievable as well. And if he is that, much disliked and he's got that good of a record, you're going to want to see him lose more. It's just the perfect thing for him to win at that event. And I think the other thing that's really good with it, he's an AEW homegrown. You've not seen him in WWE. You might have seen him in maybe some, lesser promotions before, arguably like a MLW perhaps, for example. But I mean, he is in what I would call one of the homegrowns for AEW, someone that you've not seen him on such a big stage before and could carry the company. And I think it's time we've had that. We've had Jericho, we've had Moxley. I think it's time for MJF to have his turn and an AEW guy at the top of the card.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's the one. For me, I don't want to undersell him, but he's a bit like AEW's answer to The Miz when The Miz was sort of up the top of WWE. He's got that sort of similar repertoire and build, but I just think it's the way that he carries himself. I think for me, I can only see him eventually going to WWE. I think he will be WWE one day. I think he could be the next big thing, maybe. Not that he's not a big thing already, so to speak.
No, I mean, the thing is, though, do you think that it would appeal to him? Because in WWE, I mean, we speak about the promos. I mean, of course, the scripts seem to be so scripted. Do you think that he would like to be in that micromanaged environment? Or do you think that perhaps he's having more of the time of his life and can actually not have to worry about such a PG product? He can, he can say what he wants when he wants here on a mic in AEW.
I think it would just be money. For me, though, he's definitely the Rowdy Roddy Piper of now. I think the way that you don't know what's coming next, the way he's obnoxious, the way he's unorthodox, he's got it all. But as I said, if AEW can keep him, he's a great addition. But if WWE were in for him, I think WWE should be signing him at all costs, really, if he's available at any point in the future.
I mean, of course, if he ever wanted a change of things, I think that WWE would be foolish not to. And the fact that they didn't get him earlier, I think, is a real coup for AEW and shows how good that the scouting system is in AEW because they've found some real gems, I feel, of these homegrown. Some people we didn't know so much before. I mean, you mentioned an Orange Cassidy, you mentioned a Darby Allin, you mentioned a Jungle Boy. Some of these guys that have come out of left field that perhaps weren't as well known before, but have come over so well. Even a Luchasaurus, who seems so popular. And to be fair, I really loved his line before his match this week when they had the tag team championship match. He said, Mum, it's been 65 million years, but finally a dinosaur gets a title shot. I mean, it's just so much fun to see this sort of stuff brought to AEW, and it's what, for me, makes it such a fun product. Yeah,
it does. I think that's what makes it a bit different, doesn't it? It definitely stands out.
It certainly does indeed. But if you're looking for AEW next week, on next Wednesday, you might be a bit disappointed. We've got the NBA going to be on in its place. So we've got a special day next week, which is going to be Saturday the 22nd. It's actually going to be going partly head-to-head with NXT TakeOver 30, which is very interesting indeed. They've got a card put together with Cody against Brody Lee for the Television Championship, which seems to be the main marquee match that they've got set up for next week. But what I find most interesting about it is the fact that TNT, of course, will have Saturday Night Wrestling. Of course, back in the old days, it was TBS that they had WCW Saturday Night. But at 6 o'clock start time, it kind of has a nostalgic feel for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great to see it. The whole head-to-head with NXT is pretty cheeky, but I like it. And that main event they've built is going to be great. I think that's a money match there. I think Brody Lee versus Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes has been sort of in between sort of losing the belt at various times now. Maybe Brody Lee could be the one. And this is actually a match for once. You're seeing Cody go into it thinking he may lose, which will make it interesting.
Certainly, indeed. I mean, Brody Lee, I think Dark Order seems to be on a bit of a run at the minute. So, judging on it, I wouldn't be surprised to see if there was a title change, but we'll have to wait and see. As they say, time will tell. But as one other quick just topic, I wanted to ask you a quick question, I should say, George. We mentioned there about, the old WCW days where we had like the TBS Saturday night, of course, back in the day. AEW have been rumoured to wanting to have a second show at some point. Do you think that they will take this opportunity to see what the rating is like having AEW on a Saturday at 6 o'clock and seeing maybe that this could be a potential place that you could have another 1 hour show?
Yeah, the thing is, if it does good ratings, it would make sense, really, because what you're going to get on this Saturday is maybe people that are not aware of the show during the week watching, people that may be sort of used to sort of seeing sort of AEW on a Saturday. It'll be definitely a shot for them. I think it could work, really. I think if you're only going to do another hour show, I'll be a fan of that. It'll give another hour for more talent to get a chance. What I did think was quite interesting, Steve, is although AEW won't be running on Wednesday, they are running the original pay-per-view, All In, against WWE again, which they're really getting into this whole brand war, which I think is making it, we're ultimately the beneficiary of this, the fans. What do you think?
Well, certainly, it's just an excuse to have the AEW to not switch the channel. Of course, this is going to be on YouTube, isn't it? It's not going to be head-to-head, as we say. The NBA will be on TNT, but it's certainly a good excuse to get people to check out last year's, the All-Out pay-per-view from last year and to just say, right, okay, you'll probably happily watch that. If you're AEW, you're going to pick this over going to NXT. And that certainly is interesting because there are these hardcore AEW people who won't change over, where there may be some people who might be in the middle, but this is a way to try and keep them. But yeah, I think it's salty. I think it's cheeky, but I like it because, I mean, NXT's been doing the same thing. We look back at Fyter Fest and, well, let's throw on the Great American Bash. So there has been this kind of tit for tat going on between the two companies. It certainly is making exciting viewing. For someone who enjoys both of these shows, for me, I just think myself, it's win-win.
Yeah, definitely. I think the fans are the winners, ultimately.
Absolutely, indeed. But we mentioned NXT. Let's switch on to the other side, shall we? And let's talk about the big championship match that's been announced for the next TakeOver 30. It's official. Keith Lee against Karrion Kross. Now, Karrion Kross destroyed Danny Burch in what was a lovely little opener. I really enjoyed that between the two. What I really enjoy is Karrion Kross seems to be able to take some offense, but it doesn't let him, destroy his momentum or anything. He finds a way to overcome what's going on, and he finds a way to destroy his opponents. It's almost as if he enjoys the pain. He enjoys taking a little bit of the offense from the opponent. But we see Keith Lee come out after the match there, and he says that he begged William Regal. He wasn't going to touch Karrion Kross. He's got a contract signed between himself. He's got William Regal to sign it. He just needs Kross to sign it, and then the match will be official at TakeOver. Scarlett, who's fantastic in her roles as well, always with Karrion Kross. I do love her work. Collected the contract. Karrion Kross signed the contract. As we went to go back into the ring, she gave a kiss to the closed contract, put it back in the ring. As Keith Lee wanted to check for proof that the contract had already been signed, we see a fireball come out to affect Keith Lee. And that sort of played into the big angle, it feels, with these two going into TakeOver. Now, Keith Lee had to be taken to a medical facility on the evening. It certainly played to, of course, his real-life partner, Mia Yim, as well into the match, which she had later in the evening, where she was concerned for Keith Lee's well-being. It has been reported now from WWE that Keith Lee has been released from that medical facility. So it looks like there's no effect for the TakeOver match. I think that in storyline times, they needed to do something to build this match. Now, I know that you're a fan of the Fireball segment, and I want to hear all the pros of it. For me, I did find it a bit hit and miss personally. My reasoning for it is that I didn't feel that Karrion needs to have that mystical side, but that's just a personal take for me. But I do feel that this could be a good way that they could play into the result with protecting Keith Lee if he is to drop the championship. So I feel that there is good and perhaps not so positive in this. But I know that you said that you were very positive about this. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on the way that this segment played out.
I just thought it was very clever. I'm thinking when they've done a really good job in this whole build-up of this feud of neither one of them really touching the other one. And I think it was just inventive. When you see him come out, you're thinking, oh, he's just signed a contract, that's it. Surely he's going to sign it in blood or something. You're thinking, oh, this is a bit dull. But then when that fireball comes out, it's just so different, really. And I think for me, this is further building up Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross is becoming the biggest heel probably in NXT at the moment. And what I really like about this whole build as well is both of these guys are on a win streak. Like Keith Lee hasn't lost a match since December, where he lost the house show match to Finn Balor. When you look at Karrion Kross has had 6 matches in NXT so far. He's won all of them. So this is putting us all in a really hard place to try and predict what's going to happen at the TakeOver. But for me, this is definitely a money match. I just hope that it's done well. And I'd actually be a fan, as I said to you off air, of a no contest. I think both wrestlers are so good. I think whoever wins, it's a shame for the other person, really.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue, is it too soon?
You could say it's too soon. The thing with it is, it depends. It's all down to, for me, clearly WWE have got a big eye on Keith Lee going up to the main roster. They demoed that at the Survivor Series where he was fantastic. The Royal Rumble this year, he had a fantastic cameo as well. For me, he's great in NXT, but he has outgrown NXT. I think if he did lose the belt to Karrion Kross, it's something new. The problem I think you have is if Karrion Kross doesn't beat Keith Lee, then where does Karrion Kross go next? And if Karrion Kross gets pinned here, that mystique's gone. We had a similar situation, unfortunately, with The Fiend and Seth Rollins. Fiend, obviously, with Seth Rollins was a match that The Fiend got the title shot far too soon, that they were sort of stuck in the corner. I think they're in that position again now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great comparison you make there. And of course, when you look at The Fiend at the time, I mean, that match with Seth Rollins really hurt Seth. And you could argue the match with The Fiend against Goldberg is what really hurt The Fiend.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And like you say, there can be situations where you can harm here. And like you say, Keith Lee can afford the loss because if he goes to the main roster, I mean, yes, it's a short-term championship run. Maybe it looks a bit foolish that he gave away the North American Championship, but it's enough time passed where you can sort of let it go. He had his big moment becoming the first, double champion of course, the NXT Championship and North American. Of course, Adam Cole had a double championship reign with a tag belt and North American a couple of years ago. But at the same time, I kind of agree with you. I think Kross is the one that needs the win more here. But I just kind of feel that this match, and this is no disrespect to NXT, I just think, like you say, I think it's a money match. It's almost too big for the occasion that's given. And that probably sounds bonkers, really, to probably people listening. Because they're going to turn around and say, yeah, but TakeOvers have got some of the best matches you've ever seen. I totally agree. But there comes a point where you think to yourself, should these be the matches that we should be looking forward to on WWE pay-per-views? Isn't NXT supposed to be the feeder brand?
This is a WrestleMania-worthy match for me. This is out of the whole of the matches that wrestling weekend, I think this is going to be the biggest match. I think you could say that Randy Orton and Drew is going to be big. That is going to be a match, but they're different reasons. I think it's quite nice going into a match for once and not having the obvious favourite sort of nine who's going to win for me, which creates a sense of intrigue. I think what I do like about this is both wrestlers, credit to WWE, both wrestlers have been built so good. And as I said earlier in the podcast, they've not touched. There's not really been any contact at all, which makes it interesting. Although Karrion Kross has sold a bit. I know this week he was close to a 2 count against Danny Burch. I know that's shown a bit weakness. I think the only trouble is if you do have Karrion Kross lose here, I just don't get where you go next unless it's a fluke loss. This, for me, what I would have done if I was WWE in this situation, it should have been a triple threat and you should have probably had Adam Cole in here or somebody else to take that pinfall if you don't want Karrion Kross to get the belt here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's certainly an interesting method that you could do to, like you say, keep protect of both guys there. But I think that, like you said there just before, because we were going to touch on Adam Cole, so it's a good thing you brought him up there. We'll touch on him in a couple of moments. But I do feel that, like you said, this has got WrestleMania worthy. And I do think in future, this can be two of the people that carry the company. I think Keith Lee is someone that can be your face of the company, literally the baby face along Drew McIntyre. Or you have Drew on Raw, you can have Keith on SmackDown, and Karrion Kross is just that heel that could be, the unstoppable monster that cannot be stopped as a heel way. I think we are looking here at two people in the next couple of years. And I think Karrion Kross will be fast-tracked through NXT. I really do. I think as soon as Vince lays eyes on him and Scarlett together, I think he's going to realise this guy and Scarlett, they both need to be on one of the shows. And we can't afford to have this guy losing. He needs to win until he gets the championship. And I really think that we are looking at two of the people that could be main eventing WrestleMania in about maybe 2 to 3 years' time.
I agree with you, spot on. I think the only trouble you got with Karrion Kross, if he does get the belt, my last point on it would be that it's how you get the belt off him. The problem is they don't seem to do a very good job of dropping the belts. Like going back to briefly The Fiend, though, when The Fiend lost the belt to Goldberg, as you said, it was handled so badly. It's taken many months now to try and get The Fiend back to where he was. The problem is if you are going to give the belt to Karrion Kross, if he's going to drop it down the line to somebody that's not ready or a legend or a veteran back in NXT, I think it'll be a shame, really.
Maybe they could do a route what they did with Oscar. Maybe she just kind of relinquished the championship when she came up to the main roster for her point. She had a reign for 500 days.
What I would do is I would say that Karrion Kross, if he did get the belt and he wants to go up to the main roster, the get out of jail free card, it's a bit cheap, but I'd do it. You've got to say that the NXT title is not enough. I want the world title, and then that's how you get rid of the belt, really. It's just a quick way, but probably don't look good on TV, but it will work for me.
It probably wouldn't look good for the NXT brand, but I mean, at the same time, like you say, sometimes you've got to make that change. I mean, the only other way, I mean, we mentioned triple threat matches a minute ago, could be a way where he's not involved in the decision. That could be a way for him to get the belt off of him without him losing specifically, and then you can move him up as well. Maybe even a ladder match or a cage match, something where he doesn't need to be pinned his shoulders to the mat. I think sometimes those ways are good, especially, I mean, like a cage match, it's an escape. So sometimes it's not necessarily you beat your opponent, you've almost run away. So sometimes things like that can be helpful as well.
Sorry to interrupt. I've got one last point, I think, on this. This is my last point. I think that the way that this feud's going, though, I do get a feeling in the back of my mind that Keith Lee may get the win, because you've got to bear in mind, everything's gone against Keith Lee. Obviously, his best friend, Dijakovic, got attacked. He's now had a fireball. He's had no momentum. And Karrion Kross has just been like a kind of nuisance. So what do you think? What's your kind of final prediction on this? Who's going to win this match?
Well, at the moment, I do have the money on Karrion because of the fact that we've got one more show. If Keith Lee can come in and get the upper hand on the last show, and this is how I usually like to judge a lot of my predictions a lot of the time. I like to see the story played to the show before, because that's where you can kind of have an idea where it might go. I kind of feel to myself that when you look at it, at the moment, if Keith Lee doesn't get any momentum, then like you say, there is that chance that he can pick up the victory. But I do feel in the back of my head that if he can come back in on the next show and just have that moment where he stands up for once there and gets his bit of glory before the pay-per-view, I can see him dropping it. But we'll have to wait and see as and when it does come around. But we mentioned Adam Cole a minute ago. We had a promo this week. It looked to simply build up for next week. Him and Pat McAfee will be under the same roof at the same time, even unopposed with AEW on the following show. Will he bring in the more ratings? We'll have to wait and see. But what was your thoughts with Adam Cole this week?
Yeah, it's okay. I get the creating interest. For me, this segment unfortunately didn't work. You've getting Adam Cole. He's been built up sort of as the babyface the week before, and yet he's running in with the UE, and they're attacking people such as Drake Maverick. Drake Maverick, let's bear in mind, a month ago, he was one of the hottest people in NXT, and he was a babyface. So I don't get how Adam Cole's going to get any fans or sympathy attacking Drake Maverick. It just didn't make sense to me at all. I get the UE want revenge, but I think they picked the wrong people to attack, if I'm being personally honest.
I mean, it was a weird match to put together to begin with, because neither Killian Dane or Drake Maverick have really been featured on TV so much. And it's such a shame with Drake Maverick, because he had such a bit of momentum when he got his contract. He's kind of fallen from graces in the last few weeks. But I mean, the UE, I guess it's almost just a way of, we wanted our moment. We wanted it now. We're not going to wait we're perhaps not scheduled on the show. So how do we get our TV time? We make it. So I suppose that was the way to do it. Maybe, as we say, two people have not really been on TV with a weird match being put together. Perhaps you kind of feel like, well, no one's momentum's really hurt here. But I mean, you look at it, I mean, like I say, I think Drake Maverick's the one that probably suffers the most here when you look at this segment, because of the fact that it shows how far he's kind of fallen from graces since actually just getting re-signed with the company. It feels like there's not really much in the plans of things for him going forward.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I agree with all the points. I think the thing with the UE, I get it. I think the ultimate end game with this, I've said to you off there, I reckon Adam Cole, after this coming takeover, I don't see him in the UE anymore. That's kind of my prediction now.
That's an interesting prediction as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if Cole loses. And I hate to say that, but I think the most interesting part of this is that Pat McAfee has actually released some footage of him training online. And I'm going to be honest, it doesn't look bad. He can do a moonsault. He can flip around the ring. Now, it's not all about flips. Sometimes it's fists as well. I mean, if those punches are like Shane McMahon's, we might have a problem. Or if anything, if you've seen AEW Dark this week, Ray Phoenix, what's going on there? But, looking at it, I mean, Pat looks like maybe he might be able to go. The only problem I really have is still with the build of the feud, from someone that's coming from complete outside who was, in an NFL, coming in, it's like an outsider coming into face a world champion. It doesn't look good if your former world champion, loses in this situation clean. There has to be a situation where if he's going to lose, there has to be a bit of mischief.
Yeah, I agree with you. What I'd be a bigger fan of, I'd like Adam Cole obviously to win. Obviously, X1 champion, as you said. Let's get Adam Cole to win, and then let's get the UE to attack him after. I think that's kind of the route to go down. But for me, you never know. Maybe we are going to be surprised. I never forget the time when Ronda Rousey first debuted. She came from outside, and she really impressed me at WrestleMania. No one thought she stood a chance of being a good wrestler. So let's wait and see what happens with Pat McAfee. It might be a good match. It's Adam Cole. He probably could carry him to a good match, to be fair.
Absolutely, and to be fair, I mean, been watching a lot of classic WCW of late, and I must admit, the likes of when Kevin Green came in from the MFL surprised me. And I must admit, I recently watched the first appearance of Dennis Rodman, especially quite a nice feeling after watching The Last Dance as well, just recently with that documentary series, which is fantastic. If people haven't, seen it already, but looking at it, I do feel that like you say, these people do come outside. Sometimes they surprise us, so it is a case of wait and see, and hopefully it'll be better than expected. But one more touch of NXT before we go back to the main WWE things. We want to touch on things on Raw, and I know that we need to mention another part about SummerSlam as well. I'm going to just give a bit of detail really, because we don't know enough information really, George. So I don't want to touch too much on the topic. I want to touch more on the match. But the Velveteen Dream returned this week. He was the surprise element in the show, the mystery opponent in the triple threat match for the North American Championship ladder match. Now, of course, there's been a lot of controversy with the speaking out movement and stuff, and there's been a lot of accusations that have gone against him. He was pulled from TV. He's not been on TV since his loss to Adam Cole, the NXT TakeOver In Your House. Like I said, it's not really much for us to talk over it because we don't really know the ins and outs. WWE were going to investigate. Nothing's really come out and been said, so we don't really know whether the things that have been accused of for Velveteen Dream have been founded or unfounded, but we have to assume that if he's back on TV, perhaps maybe all is clear. But looking at the actual mystery thing itself, and this is where we'll come into the topic with us, I was a bit disappointed he was the person that came in. I had expectations of someone different. I kind of feel you were the same.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think the trouble is they build it up, and you're really thinking sort of they're going this supposed battle against AEW. They're going to have something lined up, but I get it. It's just weird how he came back. So he's coming back. He's now a heel. It wasn't really explained why he did a heel turn. But for me, it felt flat. I think there would have been far better people they could have picked. You're expecting somebody like a Pete Dunne or somebody like that, or somebody at that level. I get that Velveteen Dream's just coming off of sort of challenging for the title at the In Your House pay-per-view, but I was a bit disappointed. I felt it was an overkill, really.
Yeah, I mean, of course, for me, it was disappointment. And of course, like we say, because there's not clarity on everything that's been going on, perhaps that there was a little bit of a controversial feel about it, I suppose, is what I would say. But I'm like you. I had a feeling about Pete Dunne. I really had a feeling that Ilya Dragunov was going to be the guy. I know Triple H is high on Dragunov, which was why he got the match with Finn Balor, of course, just this past January at the Worlds Collide pay-per-view that they did before the Royal Rumble, which was an excellent match, by the way, if people haven't checked it out. And of course, Dragunov as well, great match with Cesaro at a UK TakeOver last year as well, which is definitely worth checking out. But looking at the ladder match right now, we've got Bronson Reed in there. We've got Damian Priest, and we've got Cameron Grimes, of course, who picked up the victory as well. We've got two matches next week, which could lead to the final spots. We've got Finn Balor against the Velveteen Dream. We've got Johnny Gargano against Ridge Holland. Now, Gargano did suffer a bad botch, we know, in the spoilers. It was a scary moment in the match between him and Holland, but I believe that they were able to start the match again. It looks like Gargano is okay, thank goodness. Would we predict that Gargano and Balor will be the two that will fill out the rest of this ladder match?
I would say yes. I think Gargano's a safe bet. I can't see them putting sort of Ridge Holland in a ladder match in front of Gargano. I just don't see it. So I think that's a great shout. Yes, and I do think Balor does need the win. He's been a bit sort of lackluster since he lost to Cameron Grimes, if that makes sense. So I think it is definitely would need the win as well.
Yeah, I think that it's certainly the favourite of the method to go. The only other method I could see is the Dream getting in and Timothy Thatcher costing Balor, so it leads to a match with them two at the next TakeOver, because that certainly could be a direction as well, because Thatcher did have his moments. But we will go on to Monday Night Raw very quickly, and we'll first off touch on the topic with Montez Ford, who of course suffered the poisoning. Now, for me, I'm interested to see your thought of who you think it is, because, of course, Bianca Belair seems to put the blame out on Zelina Vega and, of course, her guys of Angel Garza and Andrade. She is screaming innocence. So my feeling is, if not her, who?
Yeah, I've got it down as if they want to be really mischievous, I'd go Retribution. I think that means, but I just can't think of the logic and why. But it'll either you got to either probably go Retribution, or you do have to go for his partner, his tag team partner. I just think why would he do it? It's just something different, really. Whoever it is going to be somebody we don't expect. I'd be surprised if it's a heel that's a heel currently.
For me, I'm with you on the. I think it's someone we don't expect. I think it's going to be completely out of left field. I mean, Retribution, like you say, we kind of almost feel like the favourites. They've been very juvenile. They've kind of almost been a bit of a letdown, really, been throwing things through glass windows and turning over cars. Maybe they're just, food
Do
poison.
we see? Sorry to interrupt. Do we see Bianca Belair doing it as like a double swerve, maybe?
It would be very weird. Is there another couple? I mean, how many couples do WWE want to break up?
Yeah, it's this shock TV now. We're now getting back to Attitude Era almost TV every week, so it wouldn't surprise me. But if it was Selena Vega, I think it's a bit silly though. But the original rumors were Retribution. But yeah, I just think it would be nice if it was sort of Bianca Belair because it'll be noteworthy if that makes sense.
Certainly indeed. I'm going to give you my prediction for you now, and it lacks logic, it lacks sense. It's very WWE. I'm going to go with Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode, or Robert Roode, I should say, because if Robert Roode's going to due to make a comeback, I know he was traded to Raw with Dolph. It would be a natural way to have them go for the championships after the pay-per-view as well. Gets them in the title picture straight away. So Dolph wasn't on Raw this week either. He was in the Underground the week previously, so he was around the day that Montez got poisoned. So I'm going to make that shout as a very illogical outside bet.
Good luck with it. It's a good long shot. It could happen.
It certainly would bring in the pennies if it was to make a bet, I think, at this point anyway. But we mentioned Retribution. I felt it was one step forward at SmackDown, 2 steps back with Raw. I was very disappointed with the idea of them kind of, throwing smashing up the window with the Rock, and then you kind of had like the little guy come up to them, the little producer, and saying you can't do that, and they kind of run away in a bit of a mischievous way. They turned the car over later. It just felt like it was like the week previous on Raw. We had this big sort of moment where they destroyed all the set. I felt myself, I'm really into this now, and then I got that feeling on Raw, and it just kind of felt like everyone was right. This angle's crap.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I think the trouble they have with it is SmackDown was so good. I think the problem we've having it, as you said, it's one step forward, 2 back. For me, there was a lot of sort of things that didn't make sense. The fact that they can't get into the building, like when they're scared of the smallest security guard in the world. The way that on SmackDown they're running rice, they're attacking everything and anything. It's almost like the shows, as I said off air, were filmed in not the same order. It's just doesn't make sense. The problem is if they keep booking Retribution like this, they just look like a joke, man. And the problem you're going to have is there's loads of people obviously going on off air about sort of the height of these people and all this sort of the 205 wrestlers, etc., etc. But you need to give them some sort of fear factor. For me, I would love to have seen somebody from SmackDown come and try and get some revenge, really. But it's just really, really bad. I'm just not too sure, really, how they're going to recover from this on SmackDown tonight, really, unless they kind of do the same thing again, really. But you've done it once now. Now you've done that party trick. You need to top it. The problem is if you're going to do that and then go backwards one, you can't keep pulling up these sort of stunts to almost get the excitement back. That excitement goes. Once that trick's done, you can't sort of do it again, if that makes sense to me almost.
Yeah, you can't just repeat yourself week in and week out. I mean, it's certainly not the same as doing a rematch in the ring, which can be bad enough, but to do the same angle again. Could you see that maybe like a way to get the buzz back? If they do go in the Amway Center, we mentioned that earlier in the show for SummerSlam, that there is a chance that maybe, just maybe, they could do some destruction in that arena.
I would like to see that. I think the thing is, for me, where the money is with them, or what you need to do if you want to get them established to a certain point, is have them take out Drew after the main event at SummerSlam. They need to attack somebody from the top. I think my biggest fear with this angle so far in the stable is because WWE don't know who's in it. Clearly, they're changing members to try and fool people. Most of the time, when stables are built, the hierarchy structure is already set up. You know who the leader is going to be, and you start working down backwards to try and fill the members in, if that makes sense. For me, because WWE at the moment don't seem to know who's going to be in it and where it's going, it means that this poor stable are going to struggle, really. And I think it's a shame, really, because I quite like the concept. It's great to see this whodunit type back into WWE after I've cried out for this type of thing for ages, really.
Yeah, you can't beat a good whodunit storyline because, like, when there is mystery, whether it's a mystery superstar, whether it's who's behind the mask, when it's who poisoned Montez, those things are interesting, certainly until the reveal anyway, regardless, because there still will be some intrigue of who's behind it, even if the storyline is arguably crap. But like you say, at this particular moment, there is that buzz where we want to know who it is. And that's the fear factor. If there's not a long-term booking behind these things, and I think the points you made there are excellent. And if there is no long-term storyline, we're going to get to the reveal. We're going to get where they probably lose the match of whoever they decided to cross along the way. And then we're going to get to the point where they're going to have nothing to do and probably split up by December.
Yeah, for me, I think that the way it's building and stuff like that, it all seems to be heading towards Payback. Payback for me seems to be a pay-per-view and a vehicle, really, just to be built up for this kind of stable, really. I think, as we said previously last week, it's kind of the way it's going. But we'll see. SmackDown, as I said last week, they surprised me. Let's see what they do tonight. But if they can't get in the arena tonight, or it's not continuity, the problem is when SmackDown starts, you do need them to announce that what happened last week. They should be terrified. They should be saying Retribution could turn up at any time. Not that there should be no mention of them throughout the whole show, basically.
Absolutely, indeed. I need to ask you one question because we had a discussion and a great guest this week from the Hard Hitting Wrestling Show, Ovi Manise. And if people haven't checked that out, please go and check that out now and go and check out their content as well. Very, very good stuff indeed. They said that we should still see and feel the effects on SmackDown this week that maybe, needs to be explanation, for example, if things are back to normal, like they've had to clean up, they've had to buy new ring rest. Would you like to see kind of almost like a depleted set to start the show that like almost like this is the effects we've had last week? Or do you want to see that they've at least made the continuity of where we've had to put things back together again and we're hoping it's not going to happen again? We've got extra security, extra trying to, keep these guys from doing it again.
That's a great point. Big shout out there to Ovi there. I think that point is spot on. I think if you're going to start SmackDown like it's all okay and there's no real fear, the problem is you want security even by sort of the commentators now because of what they've done. But I would like to see that. It needs to be in some sort of chaos, really, because of obviously last week the show went off. We've got chainsaws, we've got this fear factor, fans being attacked, stuff like that. I really think if you are going to sort of build this up, this week on the ante, you do need to start attacking people. It has to be somebody of that level. It can't just be an opening act. It has to be somebody that's up the main level of SmackDown, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that that's the thing where the step forward is for this now. They need to start attacking superstars because right now they're just like little vandals. They're not actually hurting anybody, and it kind of feels that there's no one really at risk unless you're behind a plexiglass or if you're a commentator. It feels that they're not really going for the serious threats, and you don't feel frightened of them at this point.
I think it's just a comedy. The problem is when they're celebrating putting a breeze block through the door and then there's another window there and they're not putting the breeze block through the window and they're celebrating like they scored a goal in the 90th minute. It just looks a bit silly, really. I'd be much more of a fan of them not really talking. I think if you're going to have one person that appears to be the leader, fine. But they need to really build up this mystery rather than just have them all celebrating and talking when it's needless, almost point scoring, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you indeed. And let's quickly touch on Raw Underground. Of course, we touched a lot on it last week, but we're just going to touch very briefly this week. A very similar concept. They didn't really feature the Hurt Business at all, which completely ruined the continuity of the storyline, I felt. But we had some WWE superstars. We had a couple of, the lesser names as well. So what were your thoughts of it this week?
Yeah, it was okay. It was a bit similar to last week. I'm still no near wiser to why it's happening and what the benefit of it is. But yeah, it was okay. There was a couple of good moments in it. I think that Shayna Baszler, it was a great vehicle for her to get over. I think a couple of the new wrestlers I've never seen before looked quite good. There was a good bit in there where one of the wrestlers almost looked like he was a UFC person. You had Dabicator in there again, which is good as well. And I was a massive fan of Arturo Rios. I think that was his name. He looked like a star as well. But my biggest fear with this, as I said to you previously last week, I don't repeat myself, is that we're on the road to SummerSlam. This is on the third hour. Your third hour in the old days was like the most important hour, whereas they're putting this out there. And what benefit is it? How is this building up SummerSlam in any way so far?
No, it doesn't feel like it is, and it feels like it's lacking some continuity for me. If it had a bit of an explanation why the Hurt Business weren't there, maybe I'd be a little bit more on board with it. Because like you said there, with Ruiz and with Dabicator, I love the idea of building new stars. I suppose it's a desperation to just try and bring some eyes to the third hour, because the third hour is losing a lot. And even the demo this week, AEW on the 18 to 34, not the 49, so not the full demographic, but the 18 to 34, AEW Dynamite was better than Raw for the whole show.
Okay, I'm not surprised. I think the problem was, let's give it to WWE in some respect. Let's give them some credit. It's something new. There is obviously probably an end game somewhere. There's going to be a story somewhere down the line where this will probably try and make some sort of sense of it. But for me, I'm still like, what the hell's going on? It's still a bit weird. I just can't believe where this is in the card, if that makes sense. I think for me, this is something that should be in the first half an hour of the show, not sort of towards the main end of the show, if that makes sense.
I can understand that. I think for me, the reason they go for the third hour is because it's seen as darker, more mystique. It's almost like you're breaking away from the PG almost a little bit.
So is it almost like in the old days, we used to have like Raw is War, like Raw was a bit tame and friendly and stuff, and then the Warzone obviously was a bit more sort of anarchy and stuff like that, really?
I think so. I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a full hour at some point. But I'm going to do going forward. This is my closer for this one on this week with Raw Underground. I'm going to forget the Hurt Business ever were there. And I'm going to see where they go with this now for the next couple of weeks and just see that Shane is running on with it. So from there, we can then judge it for what it is, and then we can critique it there rather than actually go, looking at like where the plot hole was with the Hurt Business. I think that's the way forward.
Yeah, I think it's a good way. I think, as I said earlier, credits to it. It's something different. They are trying to do different stuff now. So let's see where it plays off. I'm sure there's going to be something worthwhile. I'm sure there'll be a good reason behind this.
Absolutely. Well, one more rumour before we go on, because we mentioned the word SummerSlam. There seems to be a rumour that's come out in the mill there. It could be starting to be built this evening if that's going to be the match that's going to happen. The Intercontinental Championship. Now, there was a rumour before that Big E could be the challenger. It looks now AJ Styles could be taking on Jeff Hardy. TNA wants their main event back it by the sounds of it. But what do you feel about this? This sounds like it could be quite a tasty Intercontinental Championship match.
Yeah, I think it'd be very good. You're clearly getting sort of Jeff Hardy coming off that big win against Sheamus in the barroom, and then you've got AJ Styles. Anything with AJ is amazing. So this is almost like a dream match of WWE. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I think this would be a really hard one to predict which way it's going to go. But this feels to me that I hope it happens, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a very good match. And perhaps if Big E is to get an opportunity, maybe he's got a few weeks to build up some momentum to get into that role. Maybe it's the right thing to just leave off that for a minute. So I agree with you. I think that this could be a solid match. I think it'd be exciting. It's worthy of a SummerSlam. I think that it would be really, really good. I want to get your thoughts quickly as well. The SummerSlam tagline, "You'll never see it coming." Now, there's a few theories out there. Personally, I thought it was a dig at Rey Mysterio for having one eye, personally. But I look at it and I think to myself that maybe, just maybe, when we look at the Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre feud there, and of course we saw Randy turn on Ric Flair this week, there's a few people in the room who are suggesting that Ric Flair might be not written off TV, and this could be just a dirty little trick.
Nice. I really like that. I think that would be a good way. The way I read it, I may have taken it literally. I took it stating the obvious that during the Braun versus Fiend match, that we're going to get Alexa Bliss turn on Braun. That's kind of the way I read it. Or maybe even Braun turn on Alexa to a certain point. But it's got to be a twist. If they got this tagline and then there's nothing just sort of apart from obvious stuff, I think I'll be a bit disappointed. It'll be a bit sort of underwhelming, really. It's great that they've got this mysterious line, though. They just need to pay it off for once. I really hope.
I totally agree with you. As long as no one's losing any more eyes.
What I think as well is I think the fact that we've got Payback a week later, this whole tagline's got to fit with Payback. Because there's got to be something that someone does for the Payback to happen a week later, I think, logically as well.
I hope so. I think Retribution would be the great way to do it because that's the great close-off. But when you look and say to yourselves, right, okay, you know, what else can they do? They could do it with Bliss and Braun. I mean, maybe they'd be interested if she was like the Bliss Abigail character. I guess. Like I've said before, it's not really for me, that one. The Ric Flair one. I mean, I think it's probably good to have him off TV just for now. I wouldn't necessarily. I would go with the Retribution if it was me, but I mean, it's hard to tell, really.
Yeah, it is hard to tell. I just hope it's going to be a good show. I think the fact we're going in with such intrigue, we've got that fantastic main event in Drew versus Randy. It's going to be exciting. Obviously, next weekend it's going to be a great weekend. We've got the TakeOver, we've got SummerSlam, so it's probably the most exciting I've been about a WWE weekend for a while, probably.
Absolutely. Just before we go to the best of Twitter, one more bit of news just to share with you as well. Going to be starting tomorrow. WWE Network, if you're a network fan, WWE are going to have the best of independent wrestling companies coming to the network. Companies like they've purchased like Evolve, This is Progress, WXW Germany, and of course Insane Championship Wrestling. So all of those are going to be on the network from tomorrow. Do you think that this is good to see all these brought to the network?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's always good to see any more wrestling. Even more wrestling content is always good.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of stars that have previously worked, of course, like Drew McIntyre, of course, was involved with quite a few of those at some point when he was obviously not with WWE. So there's a good chance to see the likes of Keith Lee in there, Johnny Gargano, Aleister Black, Ricochet, Matt Riddle. The list goes on and on. So people you can see before they were in WWE, perhaps amongst these companies. So I think it's exciting stuff. Good additions to the network. I look forward to checking it out. But let's go to the best of Twitter, shall we? I asked people what's been their favourite stuff of the week. So I thought maybe we could just read a few of them out on the the show, and maybe we might have our little takes on it as well, George, as well. Philip
That'd be
Marshall.
great.
Philip Marshall from Twitter said to us, Tag Team Appreciation Night, an aspect with the sport that is finally getting noticed again. So clearly a big tag team fan. I think that it's good to see that tag team wrestling is certainly getting its respect in AEW.
Definitely. I think, as I said earlier in the show, I think tag team wrestling is a lost art. And I think the fact that even if you think of a logical booking sense, if it's done right, you can get 4 people over in one match.
It certainly is, and I think that's the beauty of it. And I think AEW is doing a masterstroke of doing so. Alex Thomas went on to say the same thing, enjoying that segment as well. So it seems to be clearly the most popular segment this week. Also, commonly on the show, Italian Habs Mike has put the build-up of Lee versus Kross. It has been great, and they've painted themselves into a corner as neither should lose, especially Lee, in his opinion. They need a finish that keeps both very strong. Well, I think we both already suggested that in the show, that both guys need to be kept strong.
Yeah, definitely. I think Italian Hams, Mike, you're on the money, mate. I agree with you, spot on. I think, it's going to be one of them. But for once, are we all a fan of a DQ finish or a no contest? I'm voting for that one now.
You definitely are indeed, yes. And we've got Thai World Order as well in there. Heather Monroe getting a national spotlight on Dynamite. A big fan of Heather Monroe there. But of course, the main sad point for her was that she was squashed in the 2-minute match to Hikaru Shida. And of course, Thai goes on to say that she's getting real fed up with AEW's treatment of the women's division.
Yeah, I think the thing with that, the trouble you've had is WWE have got an NXT, have got such a good women's division. They've got most of the good wrestlers. When you look at AEW, they weren't left with much wrestlers when they built the company to try and sign. But I agree, the women should be treated better. Hopefully, in the future, they can do as good job with the women as they've done with the tag teams.
I think so. I think it's just the case, and I'm going to do a separate video on this anyway. But I think that they just need to put a bit more strength in their booking style and a bit more focus. I think because if they had more focus, like you say, less than a 2-minute match on Dynamite, and they kind of focused a bit more heavy on that division, tried to get more of the people over, maybe things like the Deadly Draw on YouTube would get more praise rather than it's got negative feedback so far. But we'll move on to Noob and Co, who's has said that I heard that Oscar's getting a rematch against Sasha Banks at SummerSlam. You would be correct, but I get the feeling that Oscar is hinting at something interesting that will lead up to SummerSlam. Now, I wonder what that could be. Would you see Oscar with perhaps a bit more of an aggressive streak going into the rematch with Sasha?
It'd be nice to see. Obviously, she's lost her best friend, hasn't she? Carrie's gone. So, yeah, maybe. I'm interested to see what pays off. What I think would be quite interesting, going back to sort of what Ovi said, Ovi on the Hard Hitting podcast earlier, I agree with that. Maybe we'll get Bayley and Sasha both losing. I think it's going to be an interesting match. This one's really another one that's hard to predict who's going to win.
Yeah, I think so as well, certainly. And just to give a quick shout as well, Asuka and Bayley on Raw this week was probably one of the best matches seen of the week. Certainly in WWE terms, it was a fantastic encounter between the two. J-Man with our last tweet for us now, and this gives us a chance just to touch on Impact Wrestling before we close the show. Jordan Grace versus Deonna Purrazzo being announced for a 30-minute Iron Man match, which of course for the women, is going to be taking place at Emergence in 2 weeks for the Knockouts Championship. I must admit, I'm buzzing about this match. I really cannot wait for it. I thought the match was solid at Slammiversary. To give these women 30 minutes almost doesn't feel enough for me. I'm really excited about it. Are you as well?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great match. I think they can do some fantastic stuff based on their first match.
Absolutely, indeed. And of course, just to touch as well that we've got other matches to look forward to at Emergence. We've got the rematch of the Impact Tag Team Championships, the Motor City Machine Guns against the North. We've got the TNA World Heavyweight Championship of Moose versus Trey. We've also got the what's it called? The X Division Championship. Sorry about that there. We've got Chris Bay going to be defending against Rahit Raju and TJP. So there's some solid matches there linked for the card there. Certainly looking forward to it. Are you looking forward to Emergence? Do you think that they're going to put out a great show over the next couple of weeks?
I think it's something interesting to watch. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
I think it should be exciting indeed. Certainly Impact Wrestling has definitely been solid for me since Slammiversary, and they're really making a good run of it. But is there anything else you'd like to mention, George, before we close off today's show?
No, thank you for having me on again. It's been a rather interesting discussion, as always.
Certainly, it's been a very eventful week. And I'd like to say a big thanks to everyone that's been watching here on YouTube or listening. If you've been listening to podcast form on the podcast platforms, I'd like to say thanks for everyone putting their tweets in as well. Thank you. It's really appreciated. And hopefully we can get more tweets as we go on in future weeks as well of doing this. And yeah, I just want to say if it's first time on YouTube, then please do share with a friend as well. Let a friend know. Subscribe as well. It always goes a long way as well. We're trying to get up to 550 subscribers now. We've cleared the 500 hurdle. hurdle. So the next hurdle for us is the 550 mark. But that's all from us anyway. George, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great to talk to you about pro wrestling as always. An eventful week. We're looking forward to SmackDown. Keep an eye out for the Q&A, which will be coming on Sunday this week for you. Of course, as always, you can get your questions in. Just leave the hashtag AskSCW. You can even put it in the comments here on YouTube of this video, and I know to find it and know to answer it and give you a shout out in the show as well. But that's all from us anyway. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time here on YouTube. Take care and have a great day. Thanking our sponsor for this video here on SCW. Go to WrestlingCustoms247.co.uk now and receive a free title free from the collection. Simply put the belt in your basket and use the code FREEBELT. There are great items on selection for you, including custom-made framed collections of Raw, SmackDown and all NXT championships. You've got bundles as well of a belt package from Raw, including the brand new United States Championship modeled by Ricochet. You've got the SmackDown collection as well, including the brand new Intercontinental Championship with AJ Styles. You've got the Fiend with his brand new Fiend Championship, and you've even got the NXT UK and the women's belt from the Women's Evolution available as well. As you can see, blimey, you gotta be joking me. That's right, the Iconics are holding those Women's Tag Team Championship belts. And as well as that, you've got custom-made retro belts, including the Red Universal Championship and as well Daniel Bryan's eco-friendly WWE Championship belt. So don't hesitate, go to WrestlingCustoms247.co.uk, check out the website and make your purchase here today. And don't forget, you can get a free belt with a figure as well.